morning. This lecture video is going to go over some of the structures of the muscle fibers and muscles in general, how they're divided and organized. And then we're going to look specifically at some of the major muscles from head to toe and what they do. So let's just start real quickly looking at the three types of muscle tissue. There's skeletal muscle, smooth muscle, and cardiac muscle. Each one of these has a different function and some unique characteristics to them that make them different than the other muscles. So skeletal muscles are muscles that we typically think of when we think of a muscle. They're attached to bones, they produce movement, and they are under voluntary control, meaning that we can control them. If I want to lift something, I can think about it and use my muscles to lift something. These are going to be striated muscle fibers, so they have pinstripes on them, and you can kind of see that in the diagram here. And they have they're multinucleated, which means that there's more than one nucleus per muscle cell. Smooth muscle is going to be found in the lining of all of your organs and your blood vessels. These are under involuntary control, meaning that they function without us having to think about them contracting, which is a good thing because we wouldn't have time in the day to think about contracting smooth muscle to get things through it. So they help push things through the digestive system. They help push things through blood vessels. They are non-striated, so they do not have the pinstripes that are found in skeletal muscles, and they only have one nucleus per muscle cell. And then finally, cardiac muscle, cardiac for heart, meaning that this muscle is only found in the walls of the heart. It is also under involuntary control like smooth muscle. We don't need to think about it in order for them to contract, which is a good thing. And then it has the pinstripes that are similarly found in skeletal muscles. Also only has one nucleus per cell. So if we look at an entire muscle here, we can see that an entire muscle is going to be divided into a couple different subdivisions. So the entire muscle is going to be made up of these groupings, and these groupings are going to be called fascicles. And inside each of the fascicles then is going to be muscle fibers. Now, around each of these different groupings are tissues that kind of hold everything together. So around the entire muscle is going to be the outermost tissue, which is called the epimysium, and it's going to wrap around the entire belly of the muscle. So you can kind of see here, it will go around this entire thing. Then if you look at these individual fascicles that are going to be found inside of the muscles, so you can kind of see them here. These fascicles are going to be surrounded by a tissue that kind of holds them all together called the perimysium. And then the perimysium, or within each fascicle, then you can see there are all these different individual muscle fibers. And the individual muscle fibers are going to be held together by the endomysium. So you got all these different structures here that are going to get smaller and smaller. So you got your entire muscle, then you got the fascicles, and then the fascicles, you have each individual muscle fibers, and each of them are surrounded by a layer of tissue that kind of holds everything together. All right, so looking at some of the major muscles of the body, remember that when you flex, you're bringing something closer to, you're decreasing the angle between the two bones. If you extend, you're increasing the angle between bones. If you are adducting, ADD-ducting, you are bringing something closer to your body. And if you are ABD or abducting, then you are moving something away from your body. So just some general terms of movement to help you think about what's happening for each of these muscles. So starting with the muscles of the neck, here's the sternocleidoid mastoid. I call this the yes-no muscle because it is responsible for flexing your head and neck and also rotating your head. So it allows you to nod your head yes or shake your head no. It is in green here, letter H. The trapezius is going to be this muscle here. There's a better view on one of the other diagrams, but you can kind of see it from an anterior position here. And this is looking at you from an anterior position, so the front view. This is going to extend your neck and head and move your scapula. Down below this is going to be where your deltoid starts. And again, there's a better diagram of this in the next picture. And then up on top, you can start to see where the first muscles of your chest is going to arise, which is your pectoralis major. Your pectoralis major adducts and flexes your arm, and your deltoid is going to do the opposite. It's going to abduct your arm. Muscles of the face, again, you can see this is a lateral view. So starting with your occipital frontalis, this is going to help you raise your eyebrows. So I always kind of think of some of these muscles as the date muscles, right? These are what you're going to use to get yourself a date. So you kind of raise your eyebrows at someone sitting across the bar, looks kind of nice, might want to get to know them. Then you have your orbicularis oculi, which is letter K here, around the eye. This allows you to close your eyes or wink. Right? You're gonna wink at the person sitting across the bar. And then you got the zygomaticus, which is going to be located right here, letter F. And these are going to elevate and abduct your upper lip, which allows you to smile. So you've raised your eyebrows, you've winked, you've smiled at the person across. And then you got your orbicularis oris here, which is going to close your lips. So, you know, everyone wants someone who's a good listener, right? So don't talk, close your mouth. And then you have the masseter muscle and the temporalis muscles up here, which kind of do the same thing. They're going to close your jaw. So here's your masseter, and here's your temporalis way up here on the side. And then again, here's another view of that sternocleidomastoid, or that yes-no muscle. That's going to flex your head, neck, and rotate your head. So all the muscles that you need to get yourself a date, right? So looking at the muscles of the shoulder and the back. So again, a much better view here of your trapezius and your deltoid. Your trapezius is this big muscle that goes all the way from the back of your neck down through your back. So it's a large muscle right here. And its job is to extend your neck, head, and move your scapula. The big bulk of your lateral shoulder then is your deltoid. You can see that right here, letter Q. Big muscle of your middle to lower back by area, it's the biggest muscle in your body, is your latissimus dorsi, and it's going to adduct and extend your arm. Then you have the triceps brachii, which is the back of your upper arm. This is going to extend the arm at the elbow. So all of this is looking at your body from a posterior view. So looking at this is all the back, right? So this is the back of the upper arm. And then this is the back of the lower arm. And the back of the lower arm is going to be made up of several muscles that do the same job. They're called extensors, and they extend the wrist and the hand. They each have their own individual name, extensor radialis, extensor ulnaris, but you just need to understand that these muscles all grouped together are called extensors. So these are all the muscles of your back, shoulder, and the back of your arm. All right, so looking at your front or anterior, right? So we have the muscles of the abdomen. So on the very outside, on the sides, we're going to start here on this outside here, is your external oblique. These are the side muscles. It's oblique because you can see the lines run in a diagonal pattern. Its job is to flex your vertebral column and compress your abdomen. If we cut through here, the external oblique, we will then come to the next layer of muscle, which is called the transverse abdominis. And you can see that right here, which is letter C. Whoops, letter C. If we cut through that, then we get to the internal obliques. And again, oblique is just referring to the fact that the muscle fibers are running diagonally. The transverse, the muscle fibers you can see here are running back and forth. And then the deepest muscle inside of our body, inside of our abdomen, is the rectus abdominis. Rectus because the lines are running, the muscle fibers are running up and down. So our abdominal muscles are arranged in different layers. The external oblique, the transverse abdominis, the internal obliques, and then the rectus abdominis. So going over here and looking at the anterior muscles of the shoulder and the chest, the external intercostal muscles, these are going to be located right here, letter E in pink. These are going to elevate your ribs when you take a deep breath in. Then you have the biceps brachii, which is located right in the anterior part of the upper arm. Here's another picture of that deltoid, that's right there. The pectoralis major is the big muscles of your chest. And then over here in the anterior or the front of your forearm, so going from the palm up, these again are all going to be grouped together to be called flexors, and their job is to flex the wrist and the hand. And again, just like the extensors, they do each have individual names, but you just need to know them as a group of being your flexor muscles. So flexors are anterior, extensors are posterior. All right, muscles of the anterior hip and thigh. So here is the superficial view, so what you would see if you peeled the skin away, and then here's going to be what you would see if we cut these and then peeled them away. So we got like shallow muscles, and then we have very deep muscles. These are your anterior thighs, so these are called your quadriceps muscles. Your quadriceps muscles are made of the rectus femoris, which is right here, the vastus lateralis, the vastus medialis, and then if we actually cut the rectus femoris up, there's the fourth muscle, which is called the vastus intermedius, but you can't see that, so it's all good. But that's what when we talk about a quad muscle, those are the 4 quad muscles that are part of that naming. These all extend the leg at the knee. We have the sartorius, which is going to run from the lateral part of the leg all the way down and wrap around to the medial part of the knee. We have the tensor fascia latae, which is over here, letter E. It's going to adduct the thigh. Then if we cut all these quad muscles away, you can see here that there are muscles that kind of go side to side inside what we would kind of refer to as your groin area. So this would be the adductor longus, the adductor magnus, and their job is to adduct the thigh, so bringing the thigh closer to the body. And then if you look over here in the anterior of your lower leg, this big muscle back here would be your tibialis anterior, and it's dorsiflex your foot. So if you try and bring your toes up to your shin, that's dorsiflexion, and that's the muscle that's responsible for that. I did not color the iliopsoas muscle, which is going to be responsible for flexing the hip, and I also labeled it incorrectly, but they would be this muscle up here, letter B, on this diagram. And its job is to flex your hip. So kind of is going to connect your hip to your leg bones. So looking at the back of your leg or posterior leg then, so this is going to be your hamstrings. So again, here's a superficial view. This is what you would see if you just peeled the skin off. And here's what you would see if we looked deep. So these are deeper muscles than these are. These are more shallow muscles. So you have your gluteal muscles, the gluteus maximus, which makes up the bulk of your butt muscle. And right above that is your gluteus medius. The gluteus maximus is going to extend the leg at the hip, and the gluteus medium adducts the thigh. Then you have your hamstrings, which consists of the biceps femoris right here, the semitendinosus, and then the semimembranosus, which is going to be located right here. And all of these are going to flex the knee and extend the leg at the hip. On the inside or on the outside here, you're going to have your gracilis, and it's going to adduct the thigh. And then you also have here your adductor magnus, which is going to also adduct the thigh. So your gracilis right here, which is in brown, this is always on the medial side. So this is going to be the inside part of your leg here. Okay, so this one too would be the inside inner thigh. This would be your inner thigh. This runs right down your inner thigh. So always use the gracilis to remember if you're on the medial or the lateral side. So gracilis will always be on the medial side. And then the adductor magnus is letter I here. It kind of sits deep. It's a deep muscle. It'll sit right by your gracilis. And then looking at your posterior lower leg, you have your huge calf muscle here, which is called the gastrocnemius. And then the muscle that sits right underneath that is going to be called the soleus. And both of their job is to plantar flex your foot, which means when you point your toes to the ground, that's plantar flex. That's the job of these muscles. So again, these are going to point your toes to the ground versus on the anterior side, the tibialis anterior helps pull your toes towards your shin. So gluteus maximus, gluteus medius is right here, biceps femoris, semitendinosus, semimembranosus. Then you got the gracilis, again on the inside, so the medial side, and then the adductor magnus, which is letter I. And then your brachialis is another important muscle in your arm, and none of the diagrams showed it very well, so we're kind of using this one to show it to you. But then you can use the rest of these to help yourself review the muscles. It's going to flex the arm at the elbow, and it sits right next to your biceps. And then on the other side, it would be right next to your triceps. So those are the different muscles. Hopefully you have a better understanding of where they are, where they're located, and what they do.